obviously we're going to have about a 35-minute show. We're not going to be able to get everybody in there. I appreciate it. It's the old force majeure clause. It's out of my control. It happens maybe once, twice a year. It is what it is, but I'd very much like to thank our sponsors for bringing this show. I'd like to thank you. For those of you who stuck around, all 5 of you, I really do appreciate it. We put in the work in trying to produce a show every week, and sometimes it just goes up in smoke. And that's why I'd like to thank the guys who are on this show today, because they've been sitting here just waiting, watching the 55th place guy get interviewed and then drink his whatever it is he drinks. Chuck Cavaleris, Will West, Ryan Callahan, Bob Hodge. I couldn't be trapped in that hell with 4 better people than I was with you. Okay, we're going to be quick. We're only going to get a few of these segments in. It is what it is. Tennessee had a huge get in basketball. We'll start with basketball. Yes, we'll get to baseball and softball next, but we start with basketball. On Friday, Tennessee lands North Florida guard Chaz Lanier. We had said last week, Kentucky's now in this thing. If this comes down to just NIL money and the money that Kentucky's got to wave around, they've got the new coach, they're having to rebuild their whole roster. They made all kinds of promises that we're going to have $4 or $5 million. It's just, we're waiting there for our coach to go out and use. We said on this show, if it's in a bidding war with Kentucky, I don't like my chances, but we'll see where it goes.
Right.
Chaz Lanier, apparently, Tennessee made a good enough offer, cash-wise, kudos, but also he said he was interested in improving his defense, a la Dalton Connect.
Exactly.
And as Rick Barnes says, he's also interested in getting another SEC title to Tennessee and competing for a national title. And here's where I go with this. One, I never anticipated Rick Barnes having this kind of impact at Tennessee this far into it. I didn't expect that. But when you look at this, it's a great get for Tennessee and Barnes. But is it a bigger get for Tennessee and Barnes than it is a bigger loss for Pope and Kentucky right now? And either way, it's a net positive for Tennessee, obviously. Right. But you just went head-to-head with Kentucky. How many times that happened in Tennessee basketball history? You went and got somebody they were after, and you've already got a roster that's pretty good. You're coming off a championship. They're trying to rebuild. They don't get him. So is this a bigger win for Tennessee and Barnes or a bigger loss for Kentucky and Pope?
It's a bigger win for whoever got him. And with that being Tennessee, you're getting a 6'4" shooting guard that may have led the country in three-pointers made and dunks. He was the number 1 player available. It's like the NFL draft. He's the number 1 player available, and a scorer that you need to replace Dalton Connect's scoring. Totally different styles, but to do what Dalton Connect did in terms of putting the ball in the basket.
I think it's Kentucky. I think it's a bigger loss for them because I think this is especially humbling for them because you couldn't go get any of the coaches you thought you could go get. You ended up having to bring in Mark Pope. Then you put money into NIL, and it doesn't matter. You still can't beat out Tennessee even when you have more money. I think for Kentucky, this is a bit of a wake-up call, and I do wonder if we're about to see them drop just a little bit.
I don't think they'll drop for long, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that's exactly what I think. What you got is a situation where Kentucky is kind of where Tennessee was in the early 2000s in football. Gosh, you've been good. You've won. You're great. You're Tennessee. Nothing will ever change. Okay, now Kentucky, you push your coach out.
You've not been winning in the NCAA tournament.
You haven't been winning. You haven't been winning the SEC. So, yeah, I think this shows that Kentucky now, will they probably turn it around? Probably. I thought Tennessee was going to be turning things around in football for a lot of years, and it took over a decade. So I'm going huge win for Tennessee, big loss for Kentucky.
Well, which is bigger win for Tennessee or bigger loss for Kentucky?
It was 3 bigs versus 1 huge to 3 wins. It was a bigger loss for Kentucky, I think.
Okay. And here's the thing. It is easier to turn basketball around than football.
Yeah.
But I think the analogy, this is humbling is the word. Is it bigger loss or bigger win?
I'll go bigger win for Tennessee. It hurts Kentucky. No doubt about that. I just think this statement that this sends for Rick Barnes to win a battle like this, you were always thought to be the 3rd highest offer on the table, whether that's fair or not. But a lot of people thought BYU brought more money to the fight, and Kentucky obviously was throwing in a lot. So for this to be one that goes Tennessee's way, despite them coming in with less money, just kind of having the pull to say, come be Dalton Connect. We'll help you get to the NBA. He's going to be a lottery pick now. You do the same thing. that says a lot about Rick Barnes and what he's done with this
And
program.
the other thing I'd say too, since Pope took over at Kentucky, things had gone his way. He had been getting what he wanted, right? This was the well, from what I
in terms
saw.
of building their roster.
Well, yeah, I mean they still got
you go
one
read the
more-
Kentucky message
one more
boards.
key target. But from what I read
Jackson
and what
Ross,
I
yeah.
saw, this was the first time he didn't really get what he wanted.
But you knew the second he tweeted that Bible verse and posted that Bible verse to Instagram right after a meeting with Deacon Barnes. I said right there off the air, I said, oh, Tennessee's about to land this kid. Like that, exactly at that moment.
I think it's a bigger loss for Kentucky. It's a great get for Tennessee. I don't want anybody hearing this going, you won't praise Tennessee. Of course, it's a positive for Tennessee. It's a net positive, even if you say it's a bigger loss for Kentucky. Here's why I say it's a bigger loss to Kentucky. You had people in the Athletic saying 2 weeks ago, even without Chaz Lanier, Tennessee had a top 10 roster coming back.
Yeah.
He'd already brought in 3 transfer guys. You've got some talent on the roster that remain. It was already projected as a top 10 roster. Kentucky is trying to create a top 20 roster. They didn't get him. You were already top 10. You added to your riches. They're still clawing like Wildcats. I think it's a kick in the teeth for
I'll
Kentucky.
turn it around one last time. What if you hadn't have got him? How big of a loss would it? I think
You'd
it
still
would
have a top 10 roster.
I'm not quite so sure I buy that.
You'd have a better roster than Kentucky.
Well, better
regardless.
roster, I don't know if it's top 10.
We'll just combine. Okay, well.
It's a short-term loss for Kentucky. Mark Pope's not going to be judged on this year. That's the ultimate result here. I mean, he's got more
Have you
than
read the
winning.
Kentucky message?
I say it's Kentucky. He's all, you're all.
I
That's what
went
I
the
think,
first
yeah.
place I went, and they're
20
like,
years
we
ago,
got the
he
wrong
wouldn't
guy.
be judged on this year.
Yeah.
In today's environment, no, he'll be judged on this year.
Yep.
Some. They'd be
I
judged
just-
how they do against Arkansas.
He would be better off if he had a better track record. If he had done anything at all
Yeah.
at BYU in
Yeah.
terms
Right.
of in the tournament, it would have been a different beast.
I just think the fact that Chaz Lanier's from Tennessee, like
Right.
there's some things where Kentucky fans, if they look at it big
Oh,
picture,
they're trying
can shrug
that.
it off.
They're also
Like,
saying we didn't go all in with our cash. We were saving some of that. It was part to him.
They wanted
and
that
part
other
to this
kid that was in the
Robinson kid.
draft. That's who
Yeah.
they wanted, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, either way, it's a big win for Tennessee and a big
Yeah.
loss for Kentucky. They can try and claim. What was funny though, and I was going to put it up, and I wound up not doing it because it's the same here. It's the same at Alabama. It's the same at California. Well, they don't care, but the Kentucky tweets and texts and stuff on the message board was all, why is Tennessee even trying? They can't get this kid against us. We own this kid. And as soon as he announces he's coming to Tennessee, you had half of them saying, Mark Pope sucks. Why did we hire this clown? The other half said, we didn't want him to begin
Yeah.
with. He averaged 4 points a game
Right.
2 years ago in the A-Sun. It's not going to translate from that league. Nobody
Right.
wanted him in the first place.
He wasn't even a starter his first 3 years.
That's exactly what you saw. Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
So it's flipped pretty quick. It was like, he's great. We want him. Oh, he sucks anyway. But anyway, it's a tremendous get for Tennessee and Rick Barnes. And we'll get back to that point in just a minute. But first, let's catch a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about baseball, softball, and we got a little more to come when we come back on the Sports Source. Start with the softball team. They fell 3-2 in 14 innings to Alabama yesterday. That was the longest super regional game in NCAA softball history, longest Tennessee game in softball history. If they win today at 4 o'clock against Alabama, they go play UCLA in their first game in the College World Series. Yet another College World Series for Karen Weekly. If they lose, it was a good year, but it will be over in the super regionals at home to an SEC foe. What happens today at 4 o'clock?
I think they win. I have concerns. Carlin Pickens is struggling right now, it seems like, with her control. And we've seen some wild pitches and things like that. It started in game one. She wasn't getting the kind of low inside strike corner she's gotten all year, and then you could tell it kind of affected her confidence. And so I am a little concerned that Carlin Pickens right now, the spot, she's a sophomore, spot's awfully big for her. That's a lot of pressure. But the biggest issue for the Lady Vols is the bats aren't.
Yeah, they got to get that
They're just
going.
not hitting.
But,
And that's
yeah.
been their Achilles heel. It was in
Right.
the SEC tournament.
Well,
when they
don't
lose.
need the bats to travel.
Yeah. So the bats aren't working right
Yeah.
now. And so they need to be able to put up 2 or 3 runs every single game, and that's not happening.
And your
right
key
now.
players.
Yeah.
I mean,
Had
that's
a million
that's
people on
who-
base yesterday couldn't
Yep.
get in.
Yeah, I mean, and you're exactly right. Two runs a game, it seems like. They won 3-2, went the other day,
Yep.
the
Yeah,
first
and
game.
lost 3-2 yesterday.
Yeah, so, I mean, you got to get those bats going. To lose at home in 14 innings, it's like, didn't you think somebody's going to make a play
Yep.
somewhere at home? And it's kind of weird, too, because Alabama was the home team. And they ended up having the
those
bases
rules are so
loaded,
stupid.
infield chopper, and win. But it was just the whole thing was kind of weird. But to go that long, I mean, we've seen it for 7 innings, not be able to hit. This was like a doubleheader,
Yep.
not being able
Yeah.
to hit.
Baseball team. They play today at, 3 o'clock? Yeah, 3 o'clock. They got LSU for the SEC tournament title. It didn't look like they would be in this position when they lost to Vanderbilt right out of the gate. They've turned it around. They haven't been, I mean, you started a guy the other day who hadn't started all year. I think Tony Vitello realizes, you like to win it? Sure. Do we need it? No. Because you've probably got a number one seed, if not the number one seed in the NCAA tournaments coming up. But they've got LSU this afternoon, so get ready to flip your channels back and forth. Hopefully there won't be Formula One racing covering either one of them. Those things tend to go over, it seems. But what do you think happens with baseball?
I think Tennessee wins. They've shown they can win with even a not top line starter out there, and that's what this week has shown. They've got the depth of pitching that you need to make a run in the College World Series. There's nothing this team doesn't have to pull out a game like this, even after playing so many games in 5 days. So I think they get it done. I think they've got enough offense.
LSU's playing with house money too. I mean, LSU right now, it seems like if they have another life somehow, some way in this SEC tournament, it will be shocking. I think Tennessee wins as well.
And Tennessee swept LSU here. That series was here. Earlier in the year. Was that April? I think it was April.
And the key thing since then, John, LSU's been 18-5. Yeah. That's what turned their season around. Gambling sites, imagine that. I was checking. It's pretty much a toss-up. But if you like the Vols, FanDuel has Tennessee minus 1.5 runs.
Hey, now wait a second. We don't need to give these people. Hey, now FanDuel, and you type in code Chuck,
and the total's 13.5. I like going over. I think if the winds blow it out, take the total.
All right, there you go, Bob. If they lose, there'll be people upset about it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Should they even care? This one doesn't matter.
That's the thing. This isn't the NCAA basketball tournament. This isn't even the SEC basketball tournament. So yeah. If I just hope Tennessee gets through this game, you win, great. You lose, is everybody healthy?
Healthy, yeah.
Has anything weird happened? Did you have to burn a pitcher that you would like? Right. So just get through it in a normal, healthy fashion.
Tell you what, we're going to jump ahead in our normal show, so don't pay attention. The little thing all day for the next 2 segments we've got where it says next, we're bouncing around because that was built last night, and obviously we don't have a full show, so we're just going to get some different stuff in here. And when we come back, what about Joe Milton? We said there were a lot of people who worried last year, was this Heupel's offense? If people caught on to it, or was it just Joe Milton didn't have a great year? What are they saying about him in the pros? Matter of fact, what are those people saying about us? We'll show you the reaction from Boston to Joe Milton. Was it just a Tennessee thing? Or has he turned a new corner? We'll discuss that. Come on back on the Sports Source. All right, so the question is, was last year's Tennessee offense the league catching up to Josh Heupel's offense? Or was it more about Joe Milton? Well, here's what they're saying in Boston.
Radio.
It's low risk versus high reward.
The Sports Hub.
Quarterback Joe Milton goes to the Patriots in the 6th round. I'll let you guys discuss it rather than vomit. Actually, I hope he does well. He's an 8-4 quarterback. That's what he is. And if you can't process in a system that is made to make life easy on the quarterback, I don't know how you get to the NFL in process. And if you've got the giant arm, but you're under your 25% or something and 20% completion percentage on those deep balls, I don't know how that's going to improve at the next level.
If your roster is so good and so full of talent and you don't have glaring needs across the board, go ahead and make that pick.
That was the reaction in Knoxville after Joe Milton, Tennessee Volunteer, got drafted by the Patriots. That was John Pennington and Chuck Cavalaris. They have this show called The Sports Source down there on the ABC affiliate. Nice. It's got nice production value. They put the entire shows on YouTube. Ooh. And
that's nice. How do you do that?
So these guys have watched a lot of Joe Milton. Yeah. And they dump all over the pick. It's awesome. They're like, oh, well, maybe if you heard the last part, it's like, maybe if you have every need on your roster filled out and you want to blow a pick and waste it, go ahead. Take Joe Milton. Have at it.
When since post Peyton Manning and T. Martin have 8-4 quarterbacks been bad for Tennessee? Okay, what do you want them to do with a sixth round pick? I'm using another tackle, another corner, or a guy that, boy, if we can hone his skill and teach him how to play.
Yeah.
And coach him up. Sky's the limit.
All right,
Because
so
of the talent.
Can you teach a guy who's slow to process how to process faster?
Well,
Can you teach a guy who doesn't extend plays to extend them? Can you teach a guy who avoids contact and is ducking out of bounds to do that? Can you teach a guy who has no touch beyond 20 yards and has poor accuracy down the field to all of a sudden have it? Like, I think the big things they hit on, and if you listen to them, Art, the decision-making is crap.
okay.
Poor decision-making, just sort of flat-out strange at times, and doesn't really see the field and process it well.
The problem I had was the combine. Everybody's doing it on about the 80-yard pass. And I've sent you the drop. He takes like a 2-step drop, walks to his right, waits, and then fire. That's not football. That doesn't happen. You explode back on a 5-step drop, give me a hitch, and then you throw the ball 80 yards. He sent these footwork videos from yesterday. And Drake May's moving well. Joe Milton very lazy in his drop.
Which is why we're talking about this today, because you saw the tape and you did not like what you saw from Joe Milton.
The feet are not there. It's just not like you rip Drake May for his footwork. Watch Joe Milton in a warm-up or a game. It's flat-footed. Lazy, drags the foot. Like it's you could throw a ball through a wall. What's it going to do you when you're on your back? You know, Tennessee, you could get guys that are 6'6", 340, put them in front of you. You're going to block it up. You're going to block up Kentucky. You ain't going to block up the Jets. You don't have that time to do what he's doing against the Jets.
Did you think that Joe Milton was lollygagging out there a little bit between? Okay.
Lollygagging.
Yeah, let's give us all those takes you had yesterday. You were texting up a storm about Joe Milton. You were not happy.
No.
You didn't like his workout.
I've been
before
on
he
this
got
since the
drafted.
combine. I told you this
You
at the
don't
combine.
like his footwork. You don't like how he's kind of slow moving around out there yesterday.
No sense of urgency from him.
He doesn't have great body language, which all brings us to this question.
You know what
is
he knows?
Bailey Zappi making this team over Joe Milton, and is Joe Milton at risk of getting cut?
Right now, I'd have Bailey Zappi making a team over him.
There it
Absolutely.
is. There it is. We got the take out of you. There it is.
If my ass is on the line, I'm my job. I'm coaching, and I'm seeing, and I've been talking to you about the feet, the footwork, and you don't see it getting better. You don't see the want to it get better. See, I think what Milton does is he hears the talk of the arm, and we all love it, like oohing and on the 80-yard throws. Grab a box of oranges, throw them 100 yards. What's that going to do for you? If it doesn't translate to the field, and you can't hone that, then we're wasting reps here.
All right. It's interesting. These guys were watching with Raptors. It's interesting to see somebody else talk about Joe Milton because we had those debates all year. Fans had those debates. We had those debates on here. And to hear people in the market say some of the things that we saw here, I mean, part of it was has the book on Milton changed? It doesn't sound like it to me. And I hate it because here's the thing I hate about it for him is he's got a $4 million contract sitting there if he makes the team. But it sounds like lollygagging is the word. He just doesn't have the good footwork. I think, and by the way, that was Scott Zolak, Mark Bertrand in Boston that ran our show and reacted to it. Zolak's former NFL quarterback for the Patriots, Jets, and Dolphins. Also, he's part of the Patriots play-by-play team. So I think at first, where he's kind of defending Joe Milton, I think that was Patriots, Scott Zolak. And then when Mark Bertrand kind of rode him a little bit, he turned into ex-quarterback. But we thank them for mentioning us and for praising our production values. But my question is this. For those people who were worried, people have caught on to Heupel's offense. We said, I think it's just a one-year thing with this particular quarterback. This makes me feel even more certain of
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think their criticisms of Milton was everybody's criticisms of Milton, at least the people that wanted to criticize Milton. So, and he skipped the bowl game because of the draft. And he goes in the 6th round, which everybody kind of thought was where he was going to be anyway. My question becomes, does this guy really like even playing football?
You made the comment, I think on that very show, it was the same crew, by the way, on our post-draft show. I think you made the comment that he's not a guy who eats, sleeps, and breathes football.
Yeah.
That certainly is what that take from Scott Zolak
I mean,
sounds like.
he told us on our show last year during SEC Media Days, told Tyler Ivins and I, that I went home and thought about quitting this sport You're about to be the starter after being the backup for years, and you thought about not coming back and playing college football anymore. Which makes me wonder, does he really want to play college football, or does he want to play football at any level right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Chuck Cavalaris.
Cavalaris.
What do you think?
Well, it didn't work out at Michigan. It didn't really work out at Tennessee.
Yeah.
What makes you think it's going to work out with the Patriots?
Exactly.
Well, I never thought it was going to work out with the Patriots.
Tennessee got more production out of him than Michigan got out of him. I just go back to the Senior Bowl. What we saw in that game with more level talent on both sides was what we saw throughout his college career. He made some bad reads, threw a bad interception. That's the guy I think you're going to get in the NFL.
Very quickly, like 20 seconds. Do you put any of this footwork issues on Heupel and Joey Halsley?
I don't, but he was. I mean, you could certainly argue he was there long enough to coach that stuff out of him. I mean,
3 years.
Yeah, I didn't see it on that particular day. Obviously, it could have been just a low effort day from him. Who knows? We'll see if
Right.
that
But
remains
he was
an
also
issue.
talking about the tapes that he had.
But
so.
yeah. So it's I don't know. That's an interesting discussion because he was there a while.
Okay, when we come back, we got time for one more quick segment, and there are big changes coming to college football on TV this fall. We'll run through those, discuss them, see what you think about them. Come on back on the Sports Source. Once again, I appreciate all of you for being here. I'll get this out of the way. Appreciate all of you for watching. I really do, to sit through that other thing. We may stick around and do another segment or two that we'll put on YouTube later, but I appreciate you. You can check it out on our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and hope you have a safe and happy Memorial Day, in case I run out of time talking topics here. All right. College football on TV. For years, nobody went opposite high school football. Friday was its own thing. Fox and the Big Ten announced this week they have 9 games that are going national on Friday nights opposite high school. Is that just, times change, it's what it is? Or does anybody here have a problem with that?
Do I have a problem with him going against? Yeah, I got a little bit of a problem. I mean, I just think, there is something to be said. I listened to Will and Tyler a couple of months ago, and you guys were all for Friday night college football, and I get that. But I also think, if you've got a guy that likes to support his community, but he's also, say he's a huge Purdue fan, and now he's not going to go watch.
Well, think of it up there. I mean, they love high school football in the Midwest too. I mean, if you're up there, you really are likely to.
As an example, I just always kind of like the idea that, hey guys, the kids got Friday night, and we're just going to leave it to you.
The NFL started doing this too because they're putting Friday night games occasionally on
and that's right, college football.
You don't have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with it. It's just the cost of doing business. It's capitalism. And for people who want to go to that, they'll go to that. And people who don't, they won't.
I don't like having to make those choices, though. If I've always had high school football on a Friday and that's my thing, I don't like you putting me in the position.
Well, if my kid was still in high school, I might say a completely different thing right now. But she's graduated, so it's totally fine.
And it's like on top of the Friday night thing, it's all of the streaming thing too, John.
Well, let me get into that. Okay. The college football playoff that everybody's looking forward to, 12 teams. Well, I hope you're ready to pay for the streaming service Max. Used to be HBO Max. TNT and Max are going to have a couple of games a year over the next 5 years. They've subleased these, basically sublicensed them from ESPN. So you'll have to get a streamer here. Some of the games will be on ESPN, some on ABC, I suppose, some on, right here on ABC, some on Streamer Max, some on TNT. We only got about a minute and a half here, but in addition to that, the NFL on Saturday, December 21st, that's a triple header for college football. The NFL's going with that. They're putting games on Saturday just to go ahead against college football. I don't think this is great for college football playoff ratings.
No.
You got streamers mixed into this thing. You've now got the NFL going head-to-head, and the NFL is the only thing more popular. I don't think that's great for college football.
No, unintended side effect of what they've been doing. They've already been kind of going in New Year's Eve playoff games. Those haven't rated as well as they thought they would. Now,
Right, good
the
point.
NFL expanded years ago to fill in the gap after college football. Well, now you're going back into the NFL's territory.
And they're not going to clear out for you.
No, they didn't think about
Live
that.
by the sword, die by the sword, right?
Yeah.
You come after high school football, NFL comes after you.
Yep, it's gonna hurt the ratings. People watch the NFL.
Yeah,
But
which is
here's the
interesting.
thing. Do they care? Do they care?
College, I think college
I think
football will
eventually
care.
they will
I don't
care.
think the
Eventually,
NFL does
yeah.
because
No,
nothing
the
ever
NFL doesn't
bites
care.
them. College football, though, you're needing new revenue streams. So
Exactly.
what happens the next time you go to renegotiate this
And
playoff
there's-
deal and your ratings aren't as good?
I wonder if this ultimately leads to Sunday and Monday college football playoff games down the road. Moving these off Saturday to get away from the NFL.
Well, you don't want to go to Sunday.
Sunday night or something.
Sunday,
Well,
well,
I don't know.
yeah.
But even then, you have competition.
Monday and Tuesday or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. Not good. All right, thanks to these guys. Again, thanks to you. Check us out on YouTube. We may put an extra segment up there. If not, we'll see you next Sunday for a full show, I promise. YouTube. Just want to talk a little bit more about Rick Barnes. We were going to make that more of the show today, second acts, because to get Chaz Lanier, you're now, Elite Eight, he keeps him in the top 10. They've played more games in the top 10 since he's been here than they did in the history of the program before. It's unbelievable. He's won SEC tournaments. He's won the SEC outright, as he did this past year, won it again. I just didn't know he's out recruiting Kentucky head-to-head. These are things that we're just not used to over a long period of time here, maybe in a short burst, but never what he's done. This is a guy who, his last 4 years at Texas, all right, he was 60 years old when he came here. So people, it's like, okay, that was still at the time. Now it's like 70's the new 60, 80's the new 70. But back then it was like, you're getting a 60-year-old coach. What's going to happen? And he was coming off this. His last 4 years at Texas, he won one NCAA tournament game, missed one tournament altogether, finished in the Big 12 above 500 just once in his last 4 years. It had dropped. There's no debating it. It wasn't just, he wasn't winning the tournament, they moved. No, the whole thing, the record, everything, had a losing season in it. It had dropped. Then he comes here, gets the fire lit under him, and boom, he has carried on. I thought it would be a good hire because it would be like a triage thing. Yeah. I think he'll leave you better than he found you. I did not expect this. Did anybody here see this coming?
No, I don't think any of us saw this coming at all. Look, I remember right when he got here, he did the press conference, and his first interviews he did with us on the Sports Animal. It's me, Heather Harrington, and I think Josh Ward. We're sitting in our little green room area, and Rick Barnes says, I've been coaching defense my whole life. I'm ready to coach offense. And I didn't believe him. You know what I mean? Just point blank, I didn't believe him. But he's evolved, and I think that is what has led to him having so much more success than I think most of us thought that he could have had.
Well, and say back then, wasn't it like rocking chair Rick? Wasn't it like he's going to be in the
back
rocking
then,
chair?
It was like that every time he loses in March, you get that.
And he's on his way back home to Hickory. He's not going to be able to recruit. Right. He had, other than Kevin Durant, and there may be a couple of players, he's not going to be able to recruit to make the roster competitive here. And now you get this. We were just hoping for somebody to run a clean program.
Oh, I tell you what.
That's the other thing I didn't mention. And he's doing it all completely scandal-free. Players do not get in trouble.
Exactly.
I go back to an answer that you asked a question after Derek Dooley was hired for football. Bridge, destination. I said destination. Sorry. Rick Barnes, I would have thought all day.
Dude, I got that
bridge,
right.
bridge. I just did not see him as being 10 years this good. No, I thought you'll get better. You'll get the stink of Donnie Tyndall off of you. But no, they never imagined this.
Yeah, didn't think it'd be this good. Didn't know that he'd be here this long either. Thought it, 6, 7 years,
and
maybe
showing
tops.
no signs.
Yeah, and seems to be reinvigorated by the fresh start. I think just having a chance to get away from the baggage of everything that happened at Texas gave him new life. And the most impressive thing to me is he's evolved and he continues to adapt to a fast-changing sport. And he's not complaining like a lot of coaches would with each of these changes. When you ask him about NIL and all these different things, revenue sharing, he's just like, we got to figure it out. And he keeps adapting and keeps finding new ways to get things done.
Nobody's perfect. I've had my critiques of him. Everybody here at one time or another is second guess something, question something. But I got to say, and maybe this is a question for a full show later this summer, is he Tennessee's best coach, hire, since when? You can make a case. In terms of a guy taking it over here, leaving it here when he leaves. Well, we're guessing, but building it to here, doing it cleanly, consistently, a decade. I don't know. Fulmer took over for Majors. Yeah. Majors, it took him longer to build it. Right. Fulmer left it; it had declined. Heupel has done a good job.
Got to give him 7 more years.
Let's see what.
But he's not done the football level equivalent of an Elite Eight, right? He hasn't done that.
Do you have to go back to Doug Dickey? And even he, although he left you in a good place, he left you in a good place,
and then it fell down under
maybe
Bill
Doug
Battle.
Dickey, best hire since Doug Dickey. You could say Bruce Pearl, but Bruce Pearl helped toss a flame on it too, a torch on it.
Best hire since ...
I think it's Doug Dickey.
I think I might throw Majors in there.
Majors.
It did take him a while, but he brought you back to where SEC championships.
But you canned him.
But you canned him. Sure.
So,
but I still think that was a good hire.
And here's the other thing: start thinking about all the bad hires.
No, let's stop. We've thought about those for
I mean, that
years.
list
No,
goes on and on and on.
That's not another
That
show in
makes
the
Rick
summer.
Barnes.
That's a series in the summer.
shows. Yeah, that's,
But that
that's
makes
a whole new
Rick
show.
Barnes look that much better.
Yeah.
The amazing thing is Barnes was a high-profile hire by Tennessee standards. They often
Yes.
have to hire a mid-major
Yes,
type
exactly.
coach or an up-and-comer, and it worked, and it's been a bigger home run than
But
anybody
you
ever
didn't,
imagined.
you didn't have to pay $100,000 for a search firm. He's out there.
Yeah.
Go get
Well,
him.
and there's another one. People always complain about. Well, you're paying him $6 million, and he's worth
every
in
penny.
my
Yeah.
opinion, he's worth every penny.
Yep.
You look and people are like, well, he's not winning championships. You didn't give him that money to win championships. If you gave him that money to win championships, then you're an idiot. Because all you had to
Yeah.
do was look at his track record, and there are not a lot of Final Fours on there. There's no national championships on
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
So if you gave him that money thinking, all right, now we're going to pay you, so we expect you to do more than you've ever done in your last 40 years. Sorry, you were nuts. But what you did was you bought a guy to keep it between the
Yeah.
lines.
Right.
He's not just keeping it between the lines and keeping it competitive. He's winning the race and keeping it between the lines.
And look at that environment in Thompson Bowling Arena.
Yes.
How many college basketball
Pays for himself.
programs can match that?
Well,
He pays for
It's
himself.
less than how many fingers I'm holding
yeah.
up.
Yeah,
but
that's
there's
a great
also
hire.
when the UCLA negotiations happened, and he talked about going there and thought about going there. What he negotiated with Philip Fulmer to get the infrastructure to build a legitimate program.
I think that was more with Randy Boyd, but
Well,
all right.
maybe it was, but it was to get those negotiations, to get the support that they needed from an infrastructure standpoint. Bruce Pearl had a basketball team. Rick Barnes has a basketball program.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll give Dave Hart for hiring him. I'll give him credit for hiring him, even though he just fell into his lap like manna from heaven. And it wasn't a universally loved pick when they
No.
hired him either. There were people thinking he was too old and past it. But then I'll also give, especially Randy Boyd, because the people I've talked to have said it was really Boyd that got in there and got that all put together. But to know there are a lot of times this administration would have said, we're not going to pay that much. Enjoy UCLA. This administration said, nah, here's the money, we'll give it to you. It's impressive. All right. Okay, we were talking about Rick Barnes and his second act, and it made me wonder, does Philip Fulmer look at Rick Barnes and think, why didn't I do that? Now, granted, Rick Barnes was fired at Texas and knew he was coming to Tennessee before
Within
the press
2
conference.
minutes.
Before the press conference.
Yeah.
He knew.
Yeah.
We'll see you again soon. Gets off here in Knoxville, walks to another podium. Philip Fulmer didn't have those kind of offers. No one reported on any of that. There have been people that are close to him have talked about, well, he could have gone to Kansas. I heard he could have gone to BC because Gene DiFilippo, I think, was the AD up there. But there was no, you know how that works. The agent leaks it to the national writer. National writer says the school's talking to so-and-so. Nobody talked about any schools talking to Philip Fulmer. That said, I do think in 2009 or 2010, if he takes a year off, if he pushed it, man had won a national title. He's a college football Hall of Famer. If he'd pushed it, he could have gotten a job. Does he look at it and say, I could have gone to Texas and built them up and won titles the way Rick Barnes is? Most people have a view of themselves that I could do this. Do you think he looks at it, and I say Texas because that's where Barnes came from, I'm just putting it in context. Do you think he looks at it and thinks, man, I wish I'd had a second shot somewhere? Or do you think he's just happy it worked out the
What
way
he
it worked
did?
out?
I think he's made enough money from a business perspective off of Tennessee people that maybe that would have gotten hurt if he would have gone somewhere else and been the coach. I also don't think if he would have had a Tennessee level offer coming from Texas
Yes.
to Tennessee, I think he would have
Yeah,
taken
that
that
makes
all
sense.
along, right?
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
But it wasn't
I
like
don't think
that's
he had
what was
any
going to
offers.
happen,
Yeah.
right? Like is he going to go
National
to New
media,
Mexico? I mean, like where was it going to go? So it just
But after a year, I don't know who came open, but don't you think he could have pushed for it? He might not have gotten a long-time legacy program, the way that Barnes stepped into a good program, top 25 kind of all-time team. But he could have gotten something decent, couldn't he? I mean, Les
don't
Miles
think
was willing to go to
I think
Kansas.
he probably could have.
Yeah.
If you look at it, to me, Tennessee basketball, when Rick Barnes came here, let's call it was even with Purdue football. It's not bad, but it's not great.
Yeah. Oh, all-time, you mean? Just kind of an overall?
Yes, yeah. So could Coach Fulmer have gone to like a Purdue or someplace like that?
Illinois. Yeah.
I think he probably could have. And it would be interesting to see what that would have done for his legacy. But I also think one of the knocks against him before he got fired was he kind of lost the fire.
Yeah.
He wasn't going on recruiting trips during the open
And
day.
he may have lost it a little bit earlier.
Maybe taking something,
Well, he
so
didn't
maybe
start
that's the
the
reason
fire.
he didn't. But
It was always burning.
I wonder if in retrospect, if you could back up all those years, he said, yeah, I wished I had gone after one of those.
And I also think that he started to get his eyes on the athletic director job, to tell you the truth. And he would come back to be the athletic director of the very program that fired him. And he could make $1 million a year doing that. And he could stay very grounded with his family, very happy here, had grandkids. He was coaching their little league team. I just think he would have had to put the staff together. They would have had to been able to. There were so many other factors. Yeah, it could have happened, but it would have had to have been the absolutely ideal situation.
Was he as motivated a person? And this is outside looking in. Was he as motivated as it now appears Rick Barnes?
I don't think
Rick
so.
Barnes is a driven guy.
No,
You look at Philip
I
Fulmer
think
and say
that's
this
the
is a
reason
driven
he
guy.
never pursued a job.
Look at the three guys he had as his finalists when he became the AD to hire. He did not evolve, right? I mean, he was trying to get 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We win with defense, and that's just not football anymore. So I don't know that he would have had the same evolution that Rick Barnes did.
Right.
And Rick Barnes saying, hey, I want to coach offense now. I don't think Philip Fulmer was going to say, we're throwing it all over the yard, boys. Air raid, here we come.
Well, I remember an interview he did. Somebody
Yeah.
asked him after Kiffin left, and they said, what would you do if they came back to you? And he said, well, I'd get my staff back together.
Right.
And I thought, that's the wrong answer.
Yeah.
That's not the right answer. You don't want to just go get your staff back together. That's what got you fired. So maybe he wouldn't have evolved. I don't know that he's as driven. I didn't know Barnes was this driven.
Yeah.
Again, he and Izzo are the last of the old dogs to just say, I hate all this crap, but let's do it. It's a new challenge. It's
deal with
impressive. I wouldn't be. I don't think I would be there.
To something Bob said, you put a resume on somebody's desk that's got an opening. This coach's record is 152-52. He's won a national championship. He's won league championships. He's played for this. He's put these players in the pros. You think he would have got an offer, wouldn't you?
Well, I will say this. If you're giving me the choice between what he did as an athletic director and being a football coach again, I'd say the football coach might have improved his legacy more than the AD stuff.
But I will tell you, there was a national championship winning coach when Philip Fulmer was the athletics director that couldn't get a call back. And that person's representation reached out to me and asked, can you try to just tell the boosters or something and get my guy and this was a national championship winning coach.
Yep.
And
In football?
yeah, and
Who was
But it turned out it was Phil Fulmer.
it rhymes with Shmesh Miles.
Yeah.
That's what his name reminds me of. And Tennessee would not take the phone call.
Right.
So I do think a lot of it is about perception,
Check for
right?
Philip Fulmer.
I was going
Yeah.
to say perception. Fulmer wasn't seen as being on the cutting edge of any particular scheme or style of
Yeah.
play. And
Right.
that hurt him, I think.
Well,
He was a
what
guy
hurt him
who
when
needed
David
the best
Cutcliffe
player.
left,
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, you can look at the
When
numbers.
David
We did that.
Cutcliffe-
here.
I
Well-
think that's the thing. Fulmer was looked at as a great recruiter.
Right. Had those Santa
Now,
Claus eyes. I've
but
said it a million
and is
times.
it any surprise then? That's what he hired in Jeremy Pruitt. This guy who was supposed to be a
Yeah.
great recruiter and whose big thing was,
Defense.
we're gonna build this up, and if I don't do it this year, we're gonna clear out, and I'm gonna bring in 25 more guys.
Yeah.
How are you gonna beat Alabama and Georgia? Out recruit them. Okay.
And if we're
You're
talking-
not gonna last that long, even with Chick-fil-A bags.
Start
You're not
the
gonna last
bus.
that long.
And if we're talking about legacy too, if he went to an Illinois, a Virginia, someplace like that, could he have done enough to build on anything he did at Tennessee to improve how we view him? I mean, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
we
it
look
could have
back-
been. It could have been like Johnny Majors, who
Yeah.
went back to Pitt. It was not as
Right.
good the
Right.
second time
so
around.
I think he probably helped his legacy more by just letting his Tennessee work stand on its own. We pointed back to it so many times through the next 3 coaching tenures and said, will Tennessee ever reach that level again? And it was a fair question for 15 years. So I think he might have hurt his legacy by going to a lesser program.
All right.